Alrighty, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, I have a very special individual on the show, the proud son of Momma Storm, representing every week on NWA Power, and the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. I'm, of course, talking about Tim Storm. How's your day going so far there, Tim?
It's going good, man. I really appreciate you having me. It's another day in paradise. I'm a teacher, so I worked. Actually, just left school like 20 minutes ago. I'm on my way to the gym, but I definitely want to talk to you and see what's going on in your world.
No, it's awesome, man. Fair amount of like crossover at the school. Like, are there any NWA Power fans that are frequenting the school, sort of thing?
There are. It's kind of a weird balance between the teaching and the wrestling. There are a lot of students who know, and there are a lot of students who are fans, but it's a whole different world, and I have to be really careful how I cross those lines. And here's what I mean. I teach history, 8th grade history, and the last thing that 13, 14-year-old boys and girls need in their mind is me in a pair of wrestling trunks while I'm standing up there talking. So, I try to keep those really separate. I try to be a good teacher. I think I am. So when it's time for history, well, I'm going to use a reference that 90% of the fans won't get, but it shows my age. I'm a huge Airplane movie fan, the original Airplane, and there was a line in the movie where one of the kids is talking to the co-pilot, and it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the kid goes, "You're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar," and Jabbar points at his button, and he goes, "No, I'm Roger Murdoch. I'm an airline pilot." So that's kind of my response with the kids. When they say something about Mr. Storm or Tim Storm, I'll go, "No, I'm Mr. Scoggins. I'm an 8th grade history teacher." So it's, I try to keep those worlds separate. I think for obvious reasons, but yeah, there are a lot of people that watch it and want to comment. And I just thank them and keep moving toward manifest destiny or whatever we're talking about at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of some Clark Kent and Superman vibes there, but it seems like NWA Power is its own sort of world too. I mean, for myself, it's definitely like the wrestling show I very much prioritize watching, not to discount other promotions necessarily, but like I'm watching without fail every week kind of thing. And it seems like it's just picking up that much more momentum as it goes on. Can you pinpoint anything in particular that's inspired this kind of growth and fanfare?
I think I would point on an individual basis. I know for me, and I've made this comment, for a long time I felt like as far as the NWA, prior to William Patrick Horrigan buying it and Dave Lagana getting involved with him, before that ownership group came in, I really felt like it was me and a handful of guys that were kind of carrying the banner and waving the flag. And what I've realized, and I thought we were kind of alone, but what I've realized through this whole NWA Power experience is I was never alone. There's a world of fans out there who have great memories, who tie NWA to just like I do, to fantastic wrestling, the history of the promotion, 605 on Saturdays. And what I would point at was a group of people out there that were hungry for an alternative, which, it's a great time to be a wrestler. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan because there's so many options out there and varieties. And, one of my favorite things to say is that, and usually I say it about my own wrestling style, but, there are tons of different kinds of ice cream. And this is a time where you're walking into 31 flavors because you can find whatever you're looking for. And it just turns out there were a whole lot of people hungry for the wrestling that we're providing. And that makes it fun for all of us.
Yeah, for sure. And that fun very much comes across in just like the different performances from the wrestlers and just the energy there for sure. But I mean, it's an interesting product in the sense that there's the obvious, hallmarks of like the 80s studio wrestling and some forgotten aspects of, the territories style wrestling. But at the same time, I don't think it's like that niche of a product in the sense that it's also very modern at the same time sort of forward thinking as well. So it seems like there's the confluence of, what worked in the past, but also what's going to work now and in the future.
Well, and I'd say that's definitely by design. I think the initial appeal, and it's there without a doubt, and really I think it's the reason that I have had the success I've had there is I'm just being me. But there are a lot. It really appeals to old school wrestling fans. But along the same lines, we've got young talent that work what I would consider more of a high flying style. I'm a big fan just in wrestling in general. If I'm putting together a show, the guy that trained me always talked about your show should be like going to a circus, and you may not enjoy the acrobats, you may enjoy the strong man, or you may enjoy the elephants, or you may enjoy the clowns, but there's something for everybody. And I think that's kind of what what Billy and Dave kind of offer is there really is something for everybody. And one of the biggest joys that I've gotten, I've told them this, is if you read social media and you follow and just see the different people that fans are connecting with, everybody connects with somebody different. And I think that speaks really, really well to the product. It shows, hey, there's something for everybody. You just have to, give it a shot, see what we got, and you're going to find somebody that you like. And that, again, that just speaks well to good writing, good booking, good promoting, good production. It's all there.
Yeah, absolutely. And centric to, what you bring to the table. I see this in a lot of people's, commentary on social media towards you, and also a sentiment I agree with myself, but you very much carry this aura of like a heavyweight prize fighter, big fight feel, that kind of vibe. And I was also noticing you had your first crack at NWA Gold against Dan Severn. So I'm kind of wondering, is there any level of, I guess psychology that you borrow from MMA? I mean, people talk a lot about MMA using certain pro wrestling promotional devices, but do you derive anything from that kind of sphere, like any kind of combat sports minded sort of stuff or anything of the sort?
Well, I would not. I think I haven't framed it in that thought process, but I think that's true. I think what you said is true. The way that I usually look at it, and Johnny Valentine is the guy that I see this credited with, and I don't know that he actually said it. It's something I've seen on social media, but it's his quote was, "You may not believe that wrestling is real, but you're going to know that I am," and that's kind of the way I want to approach it. I learned about 10 or 15 years ago that there are certain things I don't do well in wrestling. And, for example, you're not going to see me go to the top rope very often because that is not my strong point. If you want my strong point, I can punch somebody in the mouth. I can kick somebody. I'm a fighter. So from that aspect, I think that's an MMA thing. I think that if you want to be, if you want people to perceive you as the real deal, you have to be the real deal. And that's the way I approach every match. And when I go into that, that's what I want to come out is I want people to go, holy cow, that was real. Those guys were beating the crap out of each other because that's kind of the way I do things. And that's not a work. That's the way I believe wrestling should be done. So if it appeals to some people, then that makes me happy because that's by design. I go back to something I read one time when it said, that when the caveman found himself facing, a dinosaur, he had one of two choices. He could either run or he could fight, and nowhere in there did he climb up on a rock and hit a 450. Right? I mean, and I'm not taking away from that athletic ability. I'm not taking away from the guys that do that. That's an amazing athletic thing, and it has its place in the business. It's just not my place, right? It's not what I can do. So those are my two choices, and these knees are so bad I can't run anymore anyway. So I'm going to stand and fight.
Yeah, and it just goes back to the different flavors thing that you were talking about before. Yeah, it'd be kind of weird to see, Danny Hodge crush an apple and then hit a shooting star press.
Okay, that's my first wrestling memory ever is Danny Hodge. So, yeah, I mean, that tells you how old I am. But I was just on a random Saturday morning TV. Danny Hodge came out, and it was the gimmick where everybody knows it's Danny Hodge under a mask, and he's lost a loser leaves town match, but they can't get the mask off of him. That is my first wrestling memory is Danny Hodge. Well done, by the way. That's a happy thought right there.
Yeah, no, I understand you caught the punch from Danny Hodge, and that man's got some hands, so shout out to that.
There are certain things in a wrestling career that are benchmarks, and going to the ring, and I had the pleasure to travel with him quite a bit, but our manager, my longtime tag partner, a guy who wrestles as Apocalypse, and I had Skandar Akbar as our manager, and then our opponents that night had Danny Hodge as their manager. So a real nod to the history because those guys, I don't know how much people remember that, but they were partners for a long time, and then there was a great feud between those guys that lasted for 20 years, and But yeah, to catch that punch from Danny Hodge was that's a benchmark, in a career because just how much I respect him and the history of the business.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of benchmarks too, it seems like you had quite a few of those throughout your title reign. Like I noticed you defended the title against Jerry Lawler. Is there any part of the championship run that you look back on with a particular kind of fondness? I mean, I imagine the total body of the reign in and of itself is a great memory, but is there like a particular instance that comes up in your mind when I talk about that?
Yeah, I think every wrestler, every guy in the business, and a lot have been. But it was a very, very big deal for me to defend the NWA World Title in Japan. And as the NWA continues to rise, and the prestige that title has in Japan is unbelievable. And I didn't realize it. I had the title, I don't know, 8 or 9 months at that point, and was comfortable defending it wherever. So we went to Japan and defended it against a guy there, and he was a former sumo. He was legit 500 pounds. Had done some MMA stuff. He was a very legitimate fighter, but just the way that the NWA title is perceived there is so much different than it was at the time here. And again, I think it's on the rise. I think we're on the rise. I think the title is getting back to the prestige and the prominence that it deserves. But to walk in my mind, there was no doubt that when I walked out in front of a Japanese crowd against a local Japanese, very well-known guy, that I was going to be booed, and that just didn't happen. I walked through the curtains, and I came out to the same music that Harley Race and Ric Flair and Dory Funk came out to in Japan, which was known as the NWA Championship music, and the crowd starts chanting NWA. The reverence and just the pride to be able to defend that there, that one really jumps out.
Absolutely. And you talk about the pride aspect of holding the championship. And I think, that really endeared people to you with like the 10 pounds of gold series, just like this tangible sense of you very much respect the lineage of the championship. I'm wondering how much that did to, galvanize your overall performances. Cause I've seen a lot of people talk about how you're in the most fruitful period of your career now, but I also heard you articulate the thought that you holding the title was probably that period. But is there any validity to that, like this idea that holding the championship like sort of galvanized an already great skill set and brought you up to that next level?
I think that's without a doubt. I think that happens. There's always that debate about does the man make the title or does the title make the man? And I think in this case the title made the man. And I'm basically the same wrestler that I have been for the last 10 or 15 years as far as I think my matches, what I do in the ring, my quality of my matches, those kind of things. I don't think that has really changed. Who I am as a person hasn't changed. But when I won it, nobody knows how long they're going to hold that world title, that or any prominent title when you win it. And I think there were a lot of people who thought, okay, this will be a quick deal. And I knew the night that I won it because it was very emotional for me. When I say that was my mountaintop, that's the pinnacle of my wrestling career, that is absolutely 100% true. Because of my love for the history of professional wrestling, and specifically for the NWA, when my name got added to that list, which in my opinion, and again, there are guys that were great that are not on that list, but that is a who's who of professional wrestling. And once my name got put on that list, my first thought was, they can't take it off, right? I'm on there with the men that I grew up watching and wanting to be. And again, we talked about those, and then the list goes on and on and on. And even as you come into the recent history, it is the great-great-grandfather of every title belt in every industry, in every country. It's been there, it's done that. So it really is that important to me. So winning it, in that case, it absolutely galvanized, I think, to a lot of people that I was a legitimate wrestler. And I had won a lot of titles, and some of them very prestigious, but there is none greater than that one. And I've had people come to me and say, "Oh, but if so and so called and offered, you would jump on that, and that would be more important." And the truth is, no, I wouldn't. It wouldn't be that that, more important than that, because truthfully, because I love the brand so much, and because I grew up watching that and meaning so much, it just can't get any higher than that. And people are right now thinking, well, what if? I'm telling you right now, there is nothing out there from a wrestling standpoint that would mean more than winning that title.
Yeah, and I think it's that sort of like earnestness that, like I was saying before, very much endears you to fans, like to the point where both fans and also pundits alike seem to be regarding you as one of like the most like top quality good guy characters, like someone you really want to rally behind, and there's not this like shades of gray anti-hero type of thing. What are your thoughts on this characterization from so many people that you're either the top good guy in wrestling right now, or at the very least one of them?
It literally, I can't stop. When you say that, I start smiling, because it's like when somebody says, what's it like to have your name on the list with Dusty Rhodes and Harley Race and Ric Flair and Ricky Steele? It's like, mentally my mind goes, that can't be true. It literally can't be true, because I know I'm not at that elite level of wrestling. So, and I read that stuff, and it always makes me smile, and I can't say how much I appreciate it, because here's the funny thing. Nobody's more surprised by that than I am, right? I mean, a lot of guys, or a lot of people are out there saying, it surprised me, with who's the best face in wrestling, and this is so weird because it's true. There's just no gimmick. I'm just being me, and maybe that's what people like. I don't know, but when I go out there, and one of the really fun, unique things that makes NWA Power different than any other wrestling promotion, any other thing that's on TV or anywhere else, is it's a sink or swim thing. You walk out with a live mic in front of a live crowd with not even bullet points. It's just like saying, okay, go out there and talk about your match, and it's sink or swim, right? So when I go out there, I am being me, because that's my passion. Is the NWA. That's easy. On the very first promo, Dave said, I need you to go out there with, you got about 90 seconds. Go out there and just talk about your match with Nick. And I was like, okay. And he went, you don't need any bullet points or anything, right? I went, no, that's fine. The one thing I was worried about going through the curtain was, I have a message that I want to deliver. I'm not sure I can get what I want out in 90 seconds. And, I've done TV before. If you're on a clock, you're on a clock. And as I'm standing in Gorilla getting ready to go out, and Billy walks up and he goes, don't worry about the time. Do what you want to do. We trust you. Go cut your promo. And it was like, it was like the clouds opened and the sun shined, and I was, the angels started singing. I was like, I am home, right? I mean, you're going to let me go out and say what I want to say, however I want to say it, about the most important thing in wrestling to me. That's easy, right? I can go out and do this all day if you want me to. And the fact that it connected with the crowd was a complete surprise. If you ever go back and watch, when I make the statement, I'm Momma Storm's baby boy, I don't even hesitate, because I'm not expecting a reaction at all. I'm just telling the truth. I am my mom. I am the baby in the family by a long shot. My mom's 95. There were 4 of us. 2 of them are gone. My sister is 77. I am by far the baby in the family, and I am Mama's boy to the core. So, when those things happen, again, it's just the fact that the crowd responds to it and the fans like it is a huge bonus, because nobody was more surprised than I am. I'm just being me.
Yeah, and it turned into such a thing. Like, there's the Momma Storm shirts now and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah, it's still like, and there's nothing funnier in life than to hear your 95-year-old mom refer to herself in the third person. I'll say something, and she doesn't get it, right? I mean, my mom has never liked me wrestling. She's never wanted me to wrestle. She's asked me for over 25 years, how long are you going to do this? I'm afraid you're going to get hurt. What are you doing? Are you okay? And, but to hear her say, well, don't argue with Momma Storm, or tell them Momma Storm said hi, that just, that makes my heart happy. That's good stuff right there. So the fact that she's buying into that, I love it.
Yeah, although the guys from Strictly Business were kind of, taking advantage of that a little bit, that little ruse, taking out the fake Momma Storm and stuff like that. So maybe some people not handling it so well, but it seems like most people are really digging it.
Well, here's what I would say about me personally, and probably all of us, I guess. I think that there are certain things in our lives that we may not even know it at the time, that become what I would consider my hot button, right? Didn't know that was a hot button for me. But when that, when he said, introducing Momma Storm, and the crowd popped, I knew that, obviously, that's not my mom. If you hear the camera, you can hear me say, my mom's not here. But, regardless if it's TV or written or whatever, that's still somebody making fun of my mom. So, that again, the best reaction for me, I saw something the other day that said, be real, be open, be raw, because there's too much fake in this world. And that's kind of how I respond to everything, And to their credit, Billy and Dave have offered several times to try to get my mom out there. I would love for her to. But I also know that at 95 years old, she's still very independent, and if she goes to the grocery store, which is, not 10 minutes from her house, and drives and comes back, she's pretty much exhausted for the day. So for her to try to undertake that trip, with a hour and a half drive and a 3-hour plane drive, ride. Anyway, it's just too much. She couldn't physically handle it. So, that pushed a button with me. Let's just say future TV episodes are going to be fun. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, for sure. So to that point, is your attention squarely focused on strictly business as of now? Because it seems like, pretty much every member is kind of coming at you, like the slap from Camille. There's the obvious history with Nick Aldis, altercations with, Royce Isaacs and Thomas Latimer. So is that kind of like the immediate sort of like what's in your crosshairs kind of focus?
I kind of had to, that kind of changed a little bit going into the last pay-per-view. There for a long time, I really felt like, after holding the NWA World Title, that nothing else would grab my attention. And it took me a while to adjust to that. I lost on episode 1. I lost to Nick, and the stipulation was, if you lose, you don't get another shot. And that's very real to me too. Because if I say that that's the most important thing I've ever done in wrestling, and now I will never get another shot, that becomes real emotion for me. In wrestling, you never say never, but that's how I'm approaching it. And all of a sudden now, my sights kind of went toward the TV title. That didn't work. I held it's no longer used, but I held the North American title twice. We've got the national title. There are other things out there, and kind of what had to settle in my mind was, to represent the NWA with any title is an honor. And I'm not going to say they're my primary focus, but you pointed it out. It's almost like every single member has taken a shot. Nick and I, Royce Isaac and I have been in the ring a couple of different times. Camille slapped the taste out of my mouth, and of course I can't do anything about that. I'm not going to do anything to a woman. Here on TV, and at least my time here, in about 15 or 20 minutes, Thomas Latimer and I are going to go at it. And you talk about two men just knocking the bells off of each other. That's what this becomes. So are they my focus? They're my focus because they keep rising up in the sights, and that's what comes. That's what I got to take care of. But in the big picture, I just want the NWA to continue the path that it's on and do whatever I can to make that successful, whatever that is.
Absolutely, and I think you're a key fixture in that, and whatever role you decide to take and everything. And some big matches coming up too. Like I noticed you responded to Rhino's challenge for CWA Super Break there. So a couple former NWA champions going at it.
Yeah, and I'm excited about that one. That is I don't know how long I can continue to say this, because at some point, I don't know, but that's a very unique challenge. I mean, what he brings to the table, what he offers, and his history, and the way he approaches wrestling matches, very similar to what I do. Again, that's just going to be two big men in there just going at it, and I will take that any night of the week, because That's my thing, right? I mean, if you're a champion quality, a champion caliber athlete, you want to match yourself against the best, and that's why I jumped at the challenge with Thomas Latimer. That's why I jumped at the challenge a couple of 3 weeks ago with Davey Boy Smith Jr. That's why I'm excited about Rhino. It's those are the kind of it's like you want to play in if you're playing in the Super Bowl, you want to play the best team because you want to match against those guys. And I don't honestly know how long I will be able to continue to wrestle at that level, but I'm still there now. So I want to make every chance. I want to make everyone count.
Yeah, for sure, man. And you've been great with your time, for sure. I'm curious, though, if there's anything you'd like to add as a parting thought as we're kind of wrapping up here, though.
Here's what I would encourage everybody. First off, thank you so much for supporting me because that is a wonderful, wonderful thing. Even more importantly, I'm going to say watch NWA Power Tuesdays at 6:05, 5:05 Central. Support us. Keep following. It's just getting better and better. There's no ceiling. We just keep getting better every week, every show, every pay-per-view. So if you haven't checked us out, check us out. Tim Storm NWA on Twitter, Tim Storm 01 on Instagram. You guys follow, check us out. Thank you for supporting because in the big picture, we really are the NWA family, and it's a pleasure to be a part of that.
Pleasure to be a part of it for sure, and also part of that rich lineage of NWA heavyweight champions. But for those who watch NWA Power, they already heard you on the mic. They know you still have something to prove. And yeah, just really appreciate all the time and insights there, Tim. Hopefully you have a good rest of your night as well, man.
Thank you so